Everybody's asking, what is really going on here? And of course, this has escalated into a biblical scale. The scope of what is going on in the news has become something that is like so heavy that people are having a really hard time with their lives right now.
YouTube, it's just Flex and welcome back to my channel. This video is on The Great Pandemic 3 by David Wilcock. His video is 3 hours long and it's very scholarly. So what I've done is I've condensed it into just 30 minutes for you, taking out a lot of the stuff that I think makes it hard for people to get through. The video talks a lot about, with heavy evidence, that the world's most elite families may not have the best interests in mind of the entire population. With that being said, let's get right into it.
So one of the things, just to start this off, is, again, as I said last time, the factories in China are returning to production. This was news from March 3rd. Okay? So anybody trying to tell you China's all dead and gone, that's not true at all. China is now back up to at least 95% production, maybe more. They're basically fine now. They've gotten over this thing. They have no new cases, no new deaths. Prince Philip, the husband of Queen Elizabeth, the reigning monarch in the UK, in 1988 said that he wanted to be a virus. And I showed you this very disturbing picture of him. He looks like a Sith Lord in this picture. Well, here it is in The Guardian. Did I say that? Where he says, in the event that I am reincarnated, I would like to return as a deadly virus to contribute something to solving overpopulation. Now that right there is what you call the revealing of the method. Okay? They came right out. He came right out and said, I would like to contribute to solving overpopulation by being a deadly virus. Which means he supports millions or billions of people dying to combat overpopulation. So now I want to take you back again to May 24th, 2009. This was in the Sunday Times. It got taken down pretty fast. Billionaire Club in bid to curb overpopulation. America's richest people meet to discuss ways of tackling a disastrous threat. And then, of course, you look it up on the Wayback Machine. It's not there anymore. You have to go back to October 6th or before. The blue, rather, is when it was live, and then the 24th is when it turns into a busted link. So we're going to read a little of this again. Some of America's leading billionaires have met secretly to consider how their wealth could be used to slow the growth of the world's population. The philanthropists who attended a summit convened on the initiative of Bill Gates, the co-founder of Microsoft, and they discussed joining forces to overcome political and religious obstacles to change. Okay, let's just look at that right there. How could their wealth be used to slow the growth of the world's population, meeting in secret to overcome political and religious obstacles? So this again is very highly disturbing stuff, because a religious obstacle would indicate that people would think God wouldn't approve of you doing this. Well, how are you going to stop overpopulation? Probably by killing people. Okay, here we go. Described as the Good Club by one insider, how ironic that is. It includes David Rockefeller Jr., Warren Buffett, George Soros, Michael Bloomberg, and media moguls Ted Turner and Oprah Winfrey. They gathered at the home of Sir Paul Nurse, a British Nobel Prize biochemist and president of the private Rockefeller University in Manhattan on May 5th. And it was so discreet that they had to keep it secret and say they were going to security briefings. So as I asked, why would this be so secret if these guys weren't planning something evil to try to reduce population? I just want you to be aware that these guys have wanted the planet to be where it is now, where everybody's at home, industry is much less, it's only critical services. It is not going to last this way, okay? It's not going to last very long. It might last through another month. You know, Trump just had to extend it to the end of April. That just came in today about the idea of people, you know, not leaving the house. But during this time, when the phones go down and the internet goes down, that's when you know the big magic stuff is happening. And I am so excited about this. We hardly told anybody. Until I got the word that we could leak this intel, I wasn't going to say anything about it, because I do not want to screw this up. But now we know. So it is right around the corner that these guys are going to get arrested. But they did want to destroy millions of people, billions of people with a vaccine. They're trying to show one last time before they get defeated that they're masters of the universe, that they can control what everybody's doing. They can keep you in your house. They can keep everybody afraid, okay? And it works. They literally are keeping everybody home. It's all shut down. But it's not that dangerous. It's not really killing that many people, as we're going to see from Michael Levitt, the Jimi Hendrix of epidemiologists, who should be respected. The Harvard professor, who was very bizarrely connected to Wuhan and biological research, okay? Here is his arrest notice on the Department of Justice website, as I showed you last time, but I'm going to read you some new stuff now. So it says, Tuesday, January 28th, Harvard University professor and 2 Chinese nationals charged in 3 separate China-related cases. Now, it says here in August 2018, Zhao Songzheng, who was one of his students, I guess, entered the United States on a J-1 visa and conducted cancer cell research, allegedly, they always say that's what it is, at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston from September 4th to December 9th, 2018-2019. It is alleged that on December 9th, 2019, Zheng stole 21 vials of biological research, quote unquote, and attempted to smuggle them out of the United States aboard a flight destined for China. It is alleged, this is again from the Department of Justice, that initially Zheng lied to officers about the contents of his luggage, but later admitted he had stolen the vials from a lab at Beth Israel. Zheng stated that he intended to bring the vials to China to use them to conduct research in his own laboratory and publish the results under his own name. Well, here he is, everybody, probably one of the most hated people on earth once this whole thing comes out. Sorry that he has to be Asian, you know, it could be anybody, this is just what happened. But he actually did get off on bail, and so this is, the judge in Worcester released him. Now apparently, what was really in these vials was COVID-19. Yes, because they were making the stuff, okay? And he was shipping it over to Wuhan to release it, to begin this plan. And now there's been news articles, I didn't have time to get it in there, about, we'll do it in the next one, about how, in fact, a lot of really high-rolling people seem to have known something bad was going to happen to the economy, and they all cashed out really quickly. So this thing could have been designed by these researchers as a designer virus. It's, again, very contagious, very unusual in that sense, released to China by people who do not have China's best interest in mind. So the briefings that we had said that the assistant was carrying COVID-19. So again, Charles Lieberman, I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry that you caved into this and thought this depopulation agenda was a good idea. You know, he does look sad, he does look troubled and conflicted, every picture, and man, I would be too. So what the briefings also told us is that Lieber's research was financed by none other than good old wild Bill Gates himself. And isn't it interesting, after this arrest takes place, Bill Gates has mysteriously resigned on none other than Friday the 13th of March. This is the announcement right here. But now I bring you the next big thing, which is that QAnon confirmed the intel. Right here in post 3896, where it says, you know, first of all, they're quoting from a paper that goes back to like 2007 or something, where the green circle is. It says, severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus as an emerging and re-emerging infection. And it says there, they quote from the Justice Department's own website, unbeknownst to Harvard University beginning in 2011, Lieber became a strategic scientist at Wuhan University of Technology, or what, in China, and was a contractual participant in China's Thousand Talents plan from in or about 2012 to 2017. What is the mathematical probability that this occurs, the time bomb explodes at the exact point in time that allows for maximum damage above prior to the presidential election? Please understand that the electoral process, as I said in the last show, the big 5-hour extravaganza, the electoral process got hijacked, right? We didn't get the results from Iowa, and New Hampshire got screwed up. All I'm saying is this. In the last show, I presented to you the history of something called the Alliance. It goes back, in Russia, it actually goes back 300 years. They've been trying to defeat this so-called Illuminati. We'll get into that a little more. Here in the US, it's been going on since the Korean War, which is from 1950 to 1953. This was when, again, American generals were forced to report their troop positions to the United Nations, and they found out that if they told the United Nations where the troops were going to go, there was an ambush and they all got killed as soon as they arrived. It was only when they started to tell the United Nations disinformation that the troops didn't show up where the troops were, but they would show up where they told them they were going to be. The ambush was there, but then there was no troops. So the American generals realized that the United Nations was actually killing off our soldiers, and they're supposed to be our allies. And this also wove in with the aerospace tycoon Howard Hughes. Now, Howard Hughes hired some couriers. Let's go over here, yeah. Howard Hughes hired female sex workers, actually, who are intelligence agents, to have sex with other people in the aerospace industry who were talking about this Illuminati. And they got them in bed, the women got them in bed, the women got them talking after they'd had sex, and they revealed that they do believe themselves to be the descendants of an extraterrestrial race going back to Atlantis. Much of the people who are now in the so-called Illuminati believe they are the direct descendants of key families that you read in the Old Testament of the Bible. It's not easy to be the guy who tells you this stuff. I get that. I'm not really having a fun time being the guy that tells you these things. I feel obligated to do it because I don't want to see these people succeed. But the Alliance is a really cool thing. So in 2009, I started to find out about SCIF rooms where they're having these briefings, and the military is discussing this satanic group that's trying to kill everybody on Earth, and how can they defeat them. There have been plans to try to get this mass arrest done ever since 2009. In fact, there were various points where we thought it was going to happen very soon. Now, what we have is, during the Obama administration, they were going to do a military takeover. They were going to do this thing where the power gets turned off for 2 weeks, you're in your house, you can't leave, there's military outside, and they're arresting the deep state. But it was going to be a surprise, and people weren't really necessarily going to see this coming. It would have caused a great deal of fear. At the last minute, they pulled the plug on this plan because, and here's another important thing, the Alliance does not have a lot of money. Let's go back to so the Alliance is actually, it's a grassroots effort, believe it or not. They don't have an enormous amount of resources financially to do what they're doing. So they needed someone who could self-finance. They wanted to actually have an Alliance candidate run for president, somebody who could be supportive of what they were trying to say. So there weren't very many choices. They needed somebody who had the ability to self-finance a campaign, who was not a satanic pedophile blood drinker, okay? They needed somebody who actually could find out what was really going on and be repulsed by it and want to do something about it. So they brought in Donald Trump. Before he ever decided to run, he was brought in by military friends of his. He got these briefings that lasted for 2 weeks where they showed him some really, really horrible stuff. And they convinced him to run for president, and that he would be starting to tell people things that you've never heard in any campaign before, starting to really talk about what's actually happening. If you're only paying attention to what the media is telling you, you're missing this huge thing that's going on. Because I've been getting these briefings about what was Trump really doing here, and then I start to see these briefings come out on 4chan in the beginning of the year 2017 through a source calling herself Mega Anon. I published her on October 11th, and I became friends with her. We started talking on the phone a lot. And she was talking about the idea that the reason why Trump got into office was to arrest these people, that he was working with the military and the international community to do that. It's an international effort. If you read the QAnon stuff, it is literally like the full-on conspiracy theory angle. It goes into all of the stuff that's going on with child trafficking, with Satanism, pedophilia, blood drinking, the banking elite, the establishment. It's a very, very comprehensive body of information, quite amazing in its scope and its depth and what it's telling us. And it's totally the truth. It's the real truth that you haven't been able to get before, which apparently they're getting ready to tell us now. So let's talk now more about what situation we find ourselves in now. I want you to be avoiding the media fear porn and think in a practical way, because the coronavirus numbers that they're giving us are all off. On January 26, 2000, there was a Chinese scientific study that proved that coronavirus is targeting Asian physiology 5 times more than any other race. This is a ethno-specific virus. Chinese doctors have discovered the coronavirus is designed to attach to lung receptors that are 5 times more common in Asian males than in African or Indo-European males. The Chinese are trying to defeat the deep state folks, and so this virus was partly intended to try to crush them in this war, because apparently, as of February 19th or thereabouts, the Asians have now cut off, the Chinese have cut off the deep state's line of credit. They will not accept anything but gold as payment anymore, and this is what finally drove everything over the cliff. But it's a good thing, because it's leading to everybody getting arrested, and it's actually happening faster than we expected. This really sucks, and I'm sorry to tell you this, but the virus was man-made. We know who did it. It traces back to Bill Gates, to this overpopulation thing they were trying to do. That's going to be a huge pill for people to swallow. As Mega Anon said in the last show, people are going to want to give the truth back. They're not going to want the truth, because the truth is awful. I have learned about this since 2000 from an Illuminati insider calling herself Savali, who debuted in March 2000, and I was into the conspiracy media back then, so pretty much right after she showed up, I started reading her stuff. I became friends with her, and I connected her to alternative journalists as of 2002, which led to this article on Henry Macko's website, the first time it broke. And I'm going to read a little of this again, and then I'm going to read you some new stuff from her that's very important. If you detect the devil's hand in current events, you might be closer to the truth than you think. A woman who was raised in the so-called Illuminati describes a powerful secret organization comprising about 1% of the U.S.'s population that has infiltrated all of our social institutions and is covertly preparing a military takeover of the whole planet. Savali is the pseudonym of the woman, age 45, who was a mind programmer for the cult until 1996. She specialized in mind control. She was the 6th head trainer in the San Diego branch and had 30 trainers reporting to her. She has risked her life to warn humanity of the Illuminati's covert power and agenda. She describes a sadistic, satanic cult led by the richest and most powerful people in the world. This is largely homosexual and pedophile. It practices animal sacrifice and ritual murder. Unfortunately, this is all part of what it is. You know, homosexuality, do what you want, but I mean, when it starts to get into this other sick stuff, it's bad. It works hand in glove with the CIA and Freemasonry. It is Aryan supremacist, but it welcomes Jewish apostates. And they do speak German. They are Nazis. I want you to hear from Savali herself about what they were planning to do. And remember, this was in 2000. And you can go look this stuff up. It's never gone away. It's still online. Check it out. Do you want to hear the end of the world scenario the Illuminati taught me as a member? This is her talking. It was cult propaganda, but this is how they believed the New World Order would be ushered in. There will be continued conflict in the Middle East, with the severe threat of nuclear war being the culmination of these hostilities. Kennedy had said that he intends to expose a plot to enslave every man, woman, and child. He knew about this thing. He knew about what Savali was saying. And he was assassinated, and shortly thereafter they stopped making our coins out of silver, and they just tried to sell it all off, sure enough. But now Kennedy's dream is official, and the media is already portraying it in a very negative light. So the Federal Reserve is literally these wealthy British billionaires controlling our currency with the intent that at some point they would reveal themselves and what their religious beliefs are, that they have this weird cult, and that they wanted to take over the planet. Well, that's all gone away. They've lost that power. And Trump has taken back the control of the Federal Reserve. It is so amazing that, and we were talking about this, the nationalizing of the Federal Reserve, that we're going to get Treasury notes, not Federal Reserve notes. People didn't believe me. They said that's impossible. How could that happen? Even before Trump ever won the election, I was talking about this. And it actually happened because the alliance's plan is succeeding. And this is a big, big part of it. If America's in control of its own currency, that means that these guys are not. The Alliance is going to come out very soon after the 3 days and tell you what's really going on. But we now know, and the briefing that I was authorized to give you, is that there will be a shutdown of phone and internet. And it's going to be 3 days. So we're calling this the 3 days of darkness. Remember when Q said it's going to be biblical? This is what they were really talking about. Final stage will involve about 3 days where we do not have access to regular phone calls. You can make emergency calls to 911 or other things like, a hospital, I guess. But you're not going to have the internet or the phone. And they want you to know about this so that you don't freak out and commit suicide, I guess. A lot of people they're worried might do that. But they have to go through this. So there will be an emergency presidential broadcast system that they will use. The QAnon source talked about this December 19th, 2019. They will use a national presidential alert system. And why was this created and tested? For political and information warfare. During these 3 days, they believe that they're going to be able to get everybody. They've got it all planned out, how they're going to get this thing done. They think they can get it all done in 3 days. It might take a little bit longer, but they probably will get it done in 3 days. And it's going to be fast, probably 24-hour-a-day shifts that these soldiers are working. So this is a text from Corey where he said, "I sure hope the arrests are going on. I was also told recently that all communications except 911 would go offline. I am not sure if they mean cell communications only, but they did say the internet would slow to a crawl during any actual mass arrests. Then the National Emergency Network would come on, just like you had said in the last video. With the virus scenario, they may not need to take communications down or shut down electricity in regions. We are not hearing they're going to turn off the electricity. That's very important. The general was hearing it in the beginning, but then said it was called off. This is going to be happening. They are going to do it now. I am also hearing there are very strange troop movements, National Guard, but also elite Marine units who specialize in breaching compounds have been seen moving around in a frantic manner on their base. I can't remember which one. So here's another thing. These military units have been planning to do these arrests for years, and they have been in warehouses where they have lines of tape and they've taped out where the compounds are that they're going to have to go into, where the doors are, where the security cameras are, how to get in, how to get out, how to get the people out alive and safely. They don't want to kill people. They want these people to be on trial. This is not a mass murder. This is an arrest. FEMA was gearing up some camps that had been set aside, but they were not being set up in a pattern that would be expected for a pandemic. It appears that the FEMA camps will be used as temporary holding prisons for the people who are going to be arrested. Isn't that ironic? It repeats back on the people that built it for us. So much speculation, even among the top brass, because over a week ago, all the proper briefings have stopped and communications went down. We are now running silently. We are also told to expect a lot of strange earthquakes around areas you would expect secret bases to be at. That did happen in Utah. You might have noticed a few other places. 5 different sources have basically said that there would be 3 days with no phone and no internet. The other utilities would be on. Your phone starts giving off the emergency broadcast system. You hear this crazy sound. It starts talking to you. Please remain calm. Remain in your house. It was something like this. More information will follow. Please remain calm. Please stay inside your house. It'll be something like that. You're not really going to be knowing what's going on when this happens. They're not going to tell you this is the mass arrest. So some people are going to have a serious dark night of the soul when we go through these 3 days because they're worried that this is the end, okay, and that this is martial law and this is a government takeover. That's not what it is, which once again, after the only 3 days, what we're hearing is that everybody's going to get the truth. There's these 8-hour chunks of data. They're going to run 3 times a day. You got to watch the whole 8 hours to get the data. And once you've done that, you'll basically now be aware of what's really going on, who these people are, what they were trying to do, and how they're being stopped. I cannot begin to tell you guys how effing excited I am about this. And it explains so many things. The 3 days of darkness turn into light, where we expose the shadow, right? So darkness into light is one of the things that QAnon said. And remember, on December 19th, they said the enormity of what is coming will shock the world. And they've also said nothing can stop what is coming. Well, how does that sound right now? Here it is again, post 3728. The enormity of what is coming will shock the world. And they keep saying over and over and over again, Nothing can stop what is coming. Nothing. This plan, it's all going to be legal. They've got all the sealed indictments. If you watch the count of sealed indictments, there's a gigantic number of them going through. These are secret grand jury trials. They create a sealed indictment, and they're going to open up all these sealed indictments in the 3 days in the court record and then go get the people that need to be arrested. It's an international police operation. We have to rewire and reboot the internet. That's part of why the internet's got to go down completely for 3 days. Because there are certain major nodes, certain major choke points that all the traffic is flowing through. You probably know what I'm talking about if you've done your homework. And these nodes are very dark. There's more than one of them, and they must be removed. After those particular choke points are literally taken out of the internet, they're cutting the cords, they're rewiring everything, then they turn it back on, because now all these very evil and dark places that the cabal was using for censorship, for surveillance, all that stuff, all those tools will be taken away from the cabal now. So that's part of what's going to happen. We get a new internet that doesn't have the bad guys being able to watch you through your camera phone anymore. So this is part of why they got to turn off everything, okay? It's very important. The Alliance does not want you to be afraid during these 3 days. They want you to be excited, because this is not martial law. This is not a takeover. Stay home. Don't be a weekend warrior. Don't go running outside with a gun. Somebody will shoot you if you do that. It's not a good idea. Stay inside and be happy that we're going to get this thing. We have no idea if this is going to happen or when this is going to happen. So don't hate me if nothing happens, but I sure do think it's going to be something. But enough different sources have converged that we had to speak. We did get the authorization to disclose this information. And then yet another source, just today, gave me this briefing. Now, this source is a completely separate individual. That friend is telling me that we are going to have, he's got a friend in the State Department, he's connected, he's got definitely real connections, and this is exactly what he texted me just today, having no idea what I was about to leak here, so it came in from another source. He said, I heard something about a media shutdown that will take place between April 1st and 10th, when a lot of indictments will be unsealed, ending on Good Friday. I'm hopeful. So there again is a very similar piece of information, except now it's gearing towards Good Friday at the end of the 3 days. And remember, Q said it's going to be biblical, and look at what's happening. So I only came forward once the new briefings revealed that this would be safe. The Alliance has authorized me and certain others getting this information to tell you this so that you don't freak out when we go into the phone lockdown part. And this has now made the QAnon prophecy far more interesting, because I'm realizing that they're building this whole concept of the mass arrest around the idea of ascension. Now, isn't it interesting that QAnon, which appears to be the real good guys in the Alliance, said it's going to be biblical, the Great Awakening. The 3 days of darkness is biblical, right? Jesus died for 3 days, and then they put him in the tomb, and then 3 days later he comes back in the resurrection. So isn't it interesting that the Alliance has chosen to do 3 days of darkness, as almost as if, and this is what I'm now thinking, okay, that there are positive angelic beings that are working, because this is what most ETs are actually, is angelic positive beings that are, there's only a very small percent, like less than 5% of them, they're evil, but they're very evil, that they have crafted this so that we get 3 days of darkness on earth followed by a resurrection. Going to get a world televised sit down. This is Q once again, 3862. Look at that right there. It says, number 1, allow for public dissemination of critical facts prior to a world televised sit down. And then they say on February 17th, it's going to be a very hot spring. When we get out of this thing, we're going to get a global financial reset, which will have much greater prosperity. There's literally trillions of dollars that the cabal stole, that the Alliance has frozen. We got these briefings a long time ago. And that money will be released. So the Law of One reveals that the more leisure you have, the faster you are going to ascend. All we have to do is be nice to each other. Stop fighting. Stop being angry at Dad, whether it's Trump or whoever. Okay, Trump might end up doing something really cool, and everybody's going to have to acknowledge that, even if they don't like him. Yeah, okay, well, I don't really like the guy, but oh my God, look at what they pulled off. They nationalized the Federal Reserve. They got it back under U.S. control. They got rid of they arrested all these people. They got rid of all this corruption. They stopped children from being molested and killed. This is a good thing, okay? Yeah, it wasn't the hero that we wanted, but it's the hero we got. Each additional person who's praying or meditating or feeling in a loving space and wanting the planet to be a better and more loving place, each one adds exponentially to the number of people that it's considered to be who is calling for this. So you get 2 to the first power, 2 to the second, 2 to the third, 2 to the fourth, and so the call becomes much, much greater than the call of the negative. When you do negative stuff, when you're calling for pain and fear and jealousy and betrayal and rage and terror, it only adds as 1 vote. But the votes for love count up exponentially. Any type of prayers you do are sufficient, whether it's to Muhammad or Buddha or Allah or Jesus,
I will
whatever.
cut the video there because at the end of his videos, he does meditations, which I will be posting in a separate video. Make sure to like this video and subscribe if you want to see more. And let's continue the conversation in the comment section. I love you guys. I hope you stay safe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.